and welcome. This week, we have a really interesting topic, and it's a little bit of a scary topic. I'm going to be perfectly honest, but it's a question that I have gotten and that has come up with some of our more severe clients. So I'm going to address it here. So, will my child actually starve? Will my piggy eater starve if they are not eating? So, that's what we're going to address today. If you are new to my work, please check out our website, foodologyfeeding.com, for more resources to help your child learn how to enjoy and have a good relationship with food. You can also take our free quiz at thepickeaterstest.com, and it will tell you what type of eater your child is. And if you have a fearful eater, which is the type of eater where parents start to ask this question, if I'm being honest, when they have a fearful eater, the concern does usually come up like, well, what if they don't eat? What if they starve, right? Can they starve? So that's what we're going to address today. Um, Now, it's one thing to know that your kids are not eating a lot of food or they're not eating a variety of foods, right? And that is a little bit different from not eating at all. And we have heard from parents who have been in both situations where their child truly is afraid to eat any foods. And I'll be honest, usually when that happens, there's been a traumatic event beforehand. Like they've choked on something and they are now afraid to eat any foods. And that is what I would call RFID, right? Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. They are very resistant. They are avoiding intaking any food because they are truly frightened of food at that moment. Okay. The kids with a limited variety is a little bit different because, yes, they're not getting all of the nutrients they need, but if they are taking in foods, they're just, albeit, not nutritious foods or limited foods, they're probably not going to starve in the sense that you think like they're going to pass out from not eating or something. That's probably not going to happen. But will they be nutritionally deficient? Absolutely. In fact, many people walk around nutritionally deficient all the time and not even realizing it, right? So sometimes nutritional deficiency comes in forms of various symptoms, right? And we don't always associate those specific symptoms with a nutrient deficiency, but that does not mean that it's not happening. Right. So it really depends on, well, what kind of foods your child is eating and how often they are eating. Um, you know, um, some common like nutritional deficiencies, there's a lot of different, when kids are eating who are super picky, there's usually like common foods that they are eating and common foods that they are not eating, right? They're usually not eating meats and vegetables. So it's much more likely that they're going to be deficient in, things like protein and different minerals that come from vegetables. Iron deficiency is a really popular one, but that could be things like, some dizziness and pale skin, some vitamin D deficiency, right? That could be, you might not notice it at all, but it increases your muscle weakness and might have bone pain, but like that's not something you're going to overtly see. Things like even calcium deficiency, weak bones, right? That's a deficiency that happens over time and weakens your bones over time. So some of these nutrient deficiencies, you're not going to necessarily pick up or notice right away, right? But there are some that are a little bit more obvious. Like dry skin, for example, could be a symptom of a vitamin A deficiency, right? And we do have a lot of kids with skin issues and eczema in addition to their picky eating. But again, I'm sort of digressing, right? But the point is, if your child is eating some foods and getting something in their belly, they're probably not starving in the way that you might think. Um, doesn't mean that we shouldn't address picky eating, doesn't mean that we shouldn't get them all of the nutrients that they're supposed to be getting. But they're not going to need to go to the hospital because they haven't eaten, right, food with nutrients, right? Um, Now, there are kids who are not eating, or worse, not drinking. Um, Not drinking is a little bit scarier because you can go much longer without eating than you can drinking, right? Drinking is only going to be a few days, and then not eating can be 1 to 2 weeks. But I would say if your child has not eaten or drank anything in 24 hours, to immediately call your pediatrician and speak to them. Um, don't call us, although we're here to help. Call your pediatrician if they have not eaten or drank anything in 24 hours. And this is not if they are sick, right? So this is assuming that they are healthy, they're not fighting off any cold or virus. It's really normal to not want to eat when you're sick, and that is fine. We don't recommend forcing kids to eat even if they're sick. That's like a big that's like a one that like parents really want, like, come on, just take a bite. You need to eat something, right? I'm sure you've heard that to yourself a bunch of times when you were sick and you were being taken cared for by someone, and I'm sure you've done it to your child. But it's a normal, natural process that the body is actually going into a type of fast. And when you fast, when your body fasts, which means that the absence of food or water, you will start to sort of kill the bad viruses and cells. So it's part of like the way that your body starts to heal is when you don't eat as much. So that's actually why you're not hungry when you're sick. Your body will intentionally fast itself to start to heal and feel better, right? So as long as they're not sick and they haven't eaten in a day, I would call the doctor at that point, right? Um, we don't, we don't want them to not be eating because they're afraid, right? And that's really our main concern is that, if they are not eating and there's no sickness, then they must be afraid to eat. Like something has happened. Um, and there's some sort of anxiety around food at that point. Um, Now, typically a typical child, they will get hungry. So not eating will make them hungry. If they are not telling you that they are hungry, that means that their brain is not getting hunger cues. There's a disconnect between the brain and the gut happening. And that does happen with fear and anxiety. And fear and anxiety can cause that hunger system to just completely shut off, right? So it's not like if you wait them out, they're going to eat. If they're not eating and they've been waiting and you were waiting and waiting, something is wrong. So let's see. Of course, we recommend, when to consult feeding people. Okay, well, if they're not in immediate danger, like, you know, haven't eaten or drank in like a couple of days, right? That's more of immediate danger. If they're not in immediate danger, if they're just eating less than 20 foods, if they're refusing entire food groups, if they're gagging at the sight or on different textures of foods, refusing certain textures, having sort of emotional reactions to presentations of new foods, that's when you would definitely want to get a feeding evaluation. And you want to make sure we're addressing the 4 pillars, of course: the gut, the sensory system, oral motor system, and their mindset. Okay. So those are the things I would focus on most about that concern of, are they starving or not? It's a huge myth that kids will eat when they're hungry. That's only true if there's no fear or anxiety around food. That goes out the window if your child is fearful or anxious around food for any reason. Um, as long as as long as they're having a good relationship with food, then yes, they will eat when they're hungry. Absolutely. That goes for, they will eat when they're hungry is great for when your child is sick and they're, maybe on the mend. Instead of trying to force them, they will eat when they're hungry. But if your kid has any sort of fear and anxiety around food, just know that they will eat when they're hungry is probably not going to happen. It might, or they might only stick to their preferred, very safe foods. But it will not always mean that they are going to eat when they're hungry, especially if it's outside of their comfort zone. Again, if it's outside of their safe foods, that means they are fearful or afraid or anxious about something outside of their safety net, right? So please, if you haven't already, take our quiz, see where your child falls. Are they a fearful child, or are they just stuck on certain things? And, knowing where that is, you're going to know where to start. And we have a free lesson that comes after the quiz that you can watch that explains the process of how to start getting them to like the foods and what you need to know and what the steps are, right? So if you haven't done it yet, go to pickyeaterstest.com and get started today on that. And we will see you next week, I guess. All right. Have a great week, guys. And I hope you guys have some happy meal times. Hopefully this answered your questions. If you still have questions about this, please email us or send a DM to our Instagram account at Foodology Feeding, and I can answer you there. Or on YouTube down below. You can just ask a question and we'll try to get back to you. All right. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.